Where do you even begin when discussing Grand Theft Auto 5 at this point? It is literally the most successful media product in human history. Like, ever. Name any movie, TV show, other game, or product, and Grand Theft Auto 5 has beaten them all. Definitively, raking in over $6 billion in its lifetime. It's borderline obscene. Regardless, there are two parts of the game that you need to appreciate when evaluating its merits: the story mode and the online mode. The online portion of the game has taken on a life of its own at this point, becoming a role-playing universe that's so meta it makes Zuckerberg blush harder than a priest in a deposition.
What a load of absolutely disgraceful rubbish.
Honestly, there's no way to adequately discuss the online mode in one video at this point. I'm not sure you can break it down fairly at all, because it's taken on a sort of amorphous globular form, where it takes the form of whatever you want it to be. You can do pretty much anything you want and the game will allow it, or there are mods and communities already built around it. It can be anything to anyone.
Alright, Earthlings, what form do you want me to take?
How about a crime-laden digital land where I can pretend to be a criminal because my life kinda sucks and I'm too much of a sissy to do anything in real life?
Guess? I like it. Oh, cool.
So instead of tackling that, I wanted to appreciate the base game, the story mode that laid the foundation for everything that's come since. Without the story mode and the fantastic work of the dev teams, there wouldn't be a GTA Online to praise. The unprecedented world building, fantastically implemented gameplay systems, the quality writing, and the performances that are genuine, funny, and incredibly memorable. There's so much that this game has going for it, yet somehow, all anyone ever talks about is its incestuous, money-grubbing sibling. Well, not today. Today, we're going to appreciate the thing that started it all, the story mode of Grand Theft Auto 5. And without further ado, let's get into it. But real quick, I want to say a thank you to our sponsor, Private Internet Access. Private Internet Access is the world's most transparent VPN provider with over 10 years of experience in the business, over 30 million downloads, and featuring 100% open source software. Whether you work remotely, like going out in public to write, or work on your digital devices, or even if you simply want to just take your digital safety more seriously, Private Internet Access is a great choice. And in the modern age, you can never really be too careful when it comes to online security. And one of the best elements of this whole thing is that it is extremely affordable, especially with the deal that they're offering to my viewers right now. You can get complete digital privacy by heading over to the link in the video description below, privateinternetaccess.com/Luke Stevens. If you do that, you'll save 83% off of a 3-year plan and get 4 extra months for free, which comes out to just under $2 a month. Again, check them out at the link in the video description box below or in the pinned comment to save 83% off of a 3-year plan today. Let's get this out of the way up front. Grand Theft Auto has been a very successful franchise for a very long time. Even back in the lead up to Grand Theft Auto 5's release in 2013, it was projected to be a massive success. Grand Theft Auto 4 sold ridiculously well, and prior to that, there had been multiple entries in the franchise that shattered sales records on their respective platforms. Partially because of the notoriety that the series is known for, and partially because the games, for the most part, epitomize what quality game design looks like, Grand Theft Auto has been a force in the industry for a long time. But that doesn't diminish the accomplishments of these games. These titles have been really good for a really long time, and that just proves that Rockstar knows what they're doing better than almost any other studio in the industry. They didn't just hit a vein of gold while mining one day and get lucky. They've done it consistently for decades at this point. Something about these games is truly special and has managed to evade the grasp of every other major AAA game developer that has tried to catch the same lightning in a bottle. Countless other studios have attempted to achieve what Rockstar does every time they put a game out, but almost none of them have come even close, instead releasing hollow shells and cheap imitations of the original product. So, what is it? What's so special about these games? What is so hard to replicate, and what makes them incredible? To understand this, I think we need to break down exactly what these games are like. For the most part, they seem fairly simple. There's a large open world for you to explore, filled with all sorts of quirky characters and crazy events that are both endearing and downright ridiculous. The games also offer commentary on every topic from consumerism to social media juggernauts and invasions of privacy, even to difficult conversations surrounding the use of excessive force and interrogations. There's literally not a single subject that's too taboo to discuss or that's too controversial to broach. And as a result, these games have found their way into the public discourse outside of the gaming industry. They've been blamed for rising crime rates in youth and select communities, for romanticization of crime and violence, and even for the corruption of the younger generation.
We are determined to stop a situation in which video games with pornographic and violent content are being peddled to our children.
And because there's no such thing as bad press, these scandals just push the games in front of a larger audience, increasing their reach and improving their sales. But the games aren't designed with this goal in mind, and I think that's very important to understand. Rockstar doesn't go out looking to create something controversial that's going to piss off the religious right. It just sort of happens. Instead, they just go out trying to design a game world, first and foremost, that's as genuine as possible. And perhaps this is why it pisses so many people off. It's such a realistic imitation of our world that it exposes the deep hatred for existence itself that so many people hold. The world in Grand Theft Auto V is violent, filled with traffic, cringy reality TV shows, dysfunctional families and relationships. The mentally ill, the intelligent, the rich, the poor, and even yoga. Recreating such a world in a believable way is actually a lot harder than one might think. As we saw with Cyberpunk 2077, even getting a traffic system working properly can be extremely difficult. And add on to that the multiple levels of complexity that come with a realistic population system, day-night cycle, airport, and even realistic police responses, and we have a web of extremely complex code that only a team of the most experienced world builders could craft. And this is why so many studios fail to reproduce what Rockstar makes look so easy. Saying something like, let's just make a sandbox designed after our own world sounds easy enough, but the reality is much harder to replicate in many cases than even a sci-fi or fantasy world. Because while we don't know how a sci-fi or fantasy world should be, we do know how our world should be. We can pick up on all of the small details and contradictions that are so paradoxically inscribed in our consciousnesses, yet somehow Rockstar is able to pull it off, and they did so in Grand Theft Auto V. Fantastically well. Even now in the online mode, the world is at its center. Sure, they've added races, roleplay, custom events, and so much more, but the game is still fundamentally about navigating Los Santos and charting your own course within the world that was designed for the base game. It really is a testament to the quality of the map and the systems that support it. But what does the world give you beyond just a playground for you to explore? Is it enough for a video game? Well, not quite. There's certainly a lot more to it. You see, Grand Theft Auto V is, at its core, a game about escapism. It allows the player to drive the fanciest cars, fly the most expensive jets, and commit the most heinous crimes, and do so without any restrictions or consequences. Want to blow up a meth house filled with a bunch of inbred siblings that are a threat to your own drug business? You can do that. Want to buy a country club comprised of some of the most expensive real estate you could possibly imagine in a cultural epicenter? You can do that. Want to invest in the stock market and then manipulate the market by taking out key figures in competing companies? You can do that. Seriously, so often it feels like the possibilities are just absolutely endless. You can do almost whatever you want, however often you want to, for any reason you want. It's completely up to you. The fantastically written main quest also encourages the player to engage in all of its systems, from flying to racing, the gunplay, the stock market manipulation, even to the underwater exploration in the ocean. And perhaps the coolest element of the game's main story GOTY is also the one that gives even the most hard-headed players an excuse to go absolutely crazy. What I mean is that for some players, like even myself often, it can be really hard to just let go and play the game like a crazy person. People like us always choose the most mundane options and the safest dialogue for the lowest risk. It's something about how some of us roleplay in these worlds, but Grand Theft Auto V did something really interesting. They gave us 3 different characters to explore this world as: Franklin, Trevor, and Michael. And each of them have their own backstories and motivations. Franklin is a very streetwise individual and starts the game with absolutely nothing. Trevor is absolutely out of his mind, is usually high on some sort of narcotic, and is the group's resident psychopath. And Michael starts the game with a lot of money, a dysfunctional family, and security in most facets of his life, though he's still an emotional disaster. And in a weird way, they each possess something that the others desperately want. Franklin wants to be successful, and while he has a good home life with friends and family around him, he feels like he hasn't accomplished anything in life because he's living in his aunt's house at the start of the game and working a job that he absolutely hates. Michael, on the other hand, has a family that's pretty dysfunctional, but a family nonetheless, and he also has more money than he knows what to do with and lives in a mansion in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Los Santos. But he doesn't feel fulfilled either. He's tortured by his past, and he can't seem to let go of the things he did to get to where he is today. And then we have Trevor, and Trevor in a lot of ways is bizarrely the most normal of the trio. When we played through Grand Theft Auto V again on my Twitch stream in preparation for this video, we were caught on multiple occasions by surprise. He has some legitimate emotional advice for Michael, and even though he's totally out of his mind and certainly somebody I wouldn't want to spend too much time with, he understands people and he understands himself. He's one of the most self-assured people in modern gaming, and he's also a character who lacks any and all insecurity. He does whatever he wants, whenever he wants to do it, even if it will make him look stupid or potentially embarrass him. He just doesn't care. Sure, he has his own issues, such as being totally out of his mind, but in a twisted way, he has something that Trevor and Michael don't, and that's confidence and self-satisfaction. And together, this trio works fantastically well. You can switch between them at almost any moment while playing the game, and each of them will have their own quests and objectives to pull off. And I even found myself playing differently when I was controlling each of them. With Michael, I tended to keep a lower profile, driving my fancy cars and playing the part of the white-collar criminal. As Franklin, I was a little more reckless, but I still didn't get up to too much trouble. But as Trevor, I went totally insane. I allowed myself to rob gas stations, steal random cars, to break into the airport and commandeer massive planes, and one time I even broke into a military base and managed to escape with a fighter jet. And this is the really brilliant thing about Grand Theft Auto V's story mode. They managed to give all players an excuse to go crazy and engage with every single system and mechanic that had been designed. Even those of us who take video game stories pretty seriously and try to put ourselves in the shoes of the characters we're playing, found ourselves primed to go wild. And this is where we come to the long-lasting legacy of Grand Theft Auto V. It would be very easy for me to just point at the online mode, say that this game did something incredible because it made a ton of money and is still being played today, going on a decade after its release. And while that's obviously true, there's still something more that needs to be recognized. And that is that Grand Theft Auto V is really the ultimate sandbox game. You can do whatever you want, however you want to do it, and the game world will support you in that choice. It's unadulterated escapism in its purest form, and a game like that in a world like this is just as needed today as it was back in 2013 when it launched. It's why everyone's clamoring for the next entry in the franchise, because deep down, we all long for the same feeling that we had when we first stepped foot into San Andreas back in 2013. There's no doubt about it, Grand Theft Auto V did something incredible back then, and is still doing something incredible even today.